Hello dear students. So chapter test is over and I'm sure you must have done really well. So let's hope that you all have got good marks, and with that let us now, since we have got some time, let us recall whatever we have done in the last class. So students, do you remember what we studied about in the last class? Well, I'm sure you remember. We studied about the most important battle fought between the British and the Nawab of Bengal, and that is the Battle of Plassey. So this Battle of Plassey was fought between the British East India Company and the Nawab of Bengal, the third Nawab of Bengal, Sirajud-Dowla. So Sirajud-Dowla really got angry with the British because the British were not at all listening to whatever orders the Nawab were giving, you know. So the Nawab kept on giving them orders, but they did not listen. They did not give a heed to it. That is why Sirajud-Dowla understood that in order to make sure that the British listened to whatever was being told, it was necessary to teach them a lesson. And that is why Sirajud-Dowla marched with a huge army towards the company, towards its factories, and there they captured the British officials. They also disarmed them, and also the factory that was built in Kolkata, that was locked. So when in Madras, the British East India Company people, those in Madras, when they came to know about this act of Sirajud-Dowla, then they sent Robert Clive, a very intelligent young man who was working in the company at that time. So this person, he came all over from Madras to Bengal, and there he tried to negotiate with the Nawab. But of course, the Nawab was determined. He now understood that these British would be of no use. You know, it's of no use talking to them about these things. And that is why this thing slowly turned into a battle. And this battle was known as the Battle of Plassey. Okay, and in this battle, of course, the Nawab was defeated. He was defeated mainly because of one reason, and the reason is that his most important official, who was Mir Jafar, he did not take part in the battle. The reason was the British told Mir Jafar that if he was in the side of the British and if they could win the battle against Sirajud-Dowla, then Mir Qasim was promised the throne of Bengal. So it was Mir Qasim who did not take part in the battle at all, and ultimately the British won. And after that, Mir Qasim, as promised by the British, was placed in the throne of the Nawab of Bengal. So Mir Qasim was at the very beginning acting like a perfect puppet, you know, a perfect toy who were dancing under the tunes of the British. But slowly, even Mir Qasim had to show his dignity and prove his worth to his people. That is why he stopped paying attention to the British officials and he started ordering them, because of which he was removed from power, and instead of Mir Jafar, somebody called Mir Qasim was put on the throne of Bengal. So same was the case with Mir Qasim. They thought that he would act like a puppet, but later on even Mir Qasim did not, pay attention to the orders given by the British. And that is why there was another battle fought. That was the Battle of Buxar. So in this battle, Mir Qasim was defeated. He was thrown away by the British from the throne, and on the request of Mir Jafar, he was placed back on the throne. So as a mark of respect and as a duty towards the British to show his loyalty, Mir Qasim promised to pay rupees 5 lakh every month to the British. But the British understood that only a sum of 5 lakh was not enough to maintain the big army and also to maintain their trade and everything. So slowly after the death of Mir Jafar, the British started expanding their territories as much as they could. They understood that merely by means of trade it was impossible to have control over India and do trade successfully. So that is why they started taking over the areas now. Alright, so in 1765, the authority of Bengal was now given to the British. The British now were called to be the Dewan of the Bengal province. Alright, and since they had control over the entire region, that is why they were able to have enough resources. And now, instead of getting coins for trade from Britain, they would use all the coins from the treasury itself. So it made them really, really rich, and also they had enough resources, enough money to maintain their troops, to maintain their factories, to buy resources for trade, etc., etc. So the British slowly from trade started acquiring territory, and this happened immediately after the Battle of Buxar. So then we came to discuss about something, a new term for you. The term was called Nabobs. So who were the Nabobs? The Nabobs were those people who acquired great wealth in India, and when they returned back to England, that is their home place, they were able to live lavish lives just like the Nawabs did. Okay, so these people only were called Nabobs. So in that context, we also discussed about Robert Clive, the main hero of the Battle of Plassey, if you remember. So Robert Clive, he made a huge fortune. He had got lots of property, lots of assets, and all these were given to him by the rulers or by some of the local princes as a means of loyalty towards him. So by the time Robert Clive went back to his own place, his own country, he acquired a huge amount of property, and his property was so huge that even the East India Company suspected him of corruption, and that is why he was even tried. Okay, but of course he committed suicide later on, as I already told you in the last class. So he committed suicide, and that is how he died. That is how his story ended. And then there were not many officials who actually could become that rich like Robert Clive, okay? Even if there were some who acquired a lot of wealth, but still all of them could not enjoy much in their home place, because most of them died in India because of diseases mainly. Because in India and in England, situations are different, isn't it? So in India, most of the British officials who acquired wealth, undoubtedly, still they died. And there were many who did not return back at all. They stayed to India. They stayed in India till their death. And there were still some who went back to their native country, England, and who started living their lavish lives. And they were called as the Nabobs. So today, students, we will be studying about how, after the Battle of Buxar, how the various governor generals who came, who were given the charge of India, how they started expanding their territories. What were the different ways through which territories were now expanded? So there are the things that we will be discussing today. So pay attention, students. I know you must be really tired with your chapter test and everything, but still we have got a huge course to complete before your PT1. That is why we'll be doing a brief discussion. Please watch the entire video, because in the end you will also get your homework, which you need to do and submit tomorrow itself. So keep watching. Thank you.
From trade to territory, company rule expands. So the topics that will be covered today is a small introduction on how the company has, expanded its rule, then subsidiary alliance. Then we will study about Tipu Sultan, who is also called as the Tiger of Mysore. And last, we will study about the war with the Marathas. So the basic objective of today's discussion is to know about the various policies of expansion by the British East India Company. That means here we will try to understand those policies or those programs which were taken up by the East India Company in order to expand their rule here. Okay, so let's begin with a very brief introduction. So the British tried to use a variety of techniques, a variety of methods in order to annex different Indian kingdoms. Annex means to conquer. So the British used political, economic as well as diplomatic methods in order to ensure that they extend their influence. Okay, they extend their trade, and in that manner they also start conquering the Indian kingdoms. So I hope you remember the Battle of Buxar, students. So after the Battle of Buxar, the company appointed residents in the Indian states, and the job of those residents was to work for the benefit and to work for the interest of the company. So these residents were basically like the spies. Okay, their main work was to look everywhere in the various places where they were appointed in order to check if somebody is going against the British. So through this residence, the company started interfering in the internal affairs of the states. So the residents, they were working like a spy, as I told you. So these residents, they kept on telling everything to the East India Company. So the East India Company, since they had all the informations about a particular state, therefore the company started interfering in the internal affairs of the state. For example, it was the company that tried to decide who would rule after the death of the present ruler, or who would be appointed as the administrative officer. So they appointed those people in power, those who were ready to work in favor of the company. So in short, they started to interfere in the affairs of the states, which definitely disturbed the rulers. And these states that were controlled by the company with the help of the residents, they forced the states into something. And that something was, they forced those states into subsidiary alliance. So what is this subsidiary alliance? So subsidiary alliance means that the Indian rulers or the kings, they were not allowed to maintain their own independent army. Okay, so instead the army, they will be under the company, and the rulers were supposed to pay for maintaining it to the company. Did you understand? So there were armed forces, there was military under the ruler, but these rulers, they had to pay the company because the company took those army or took that military force under his control, under its control. Okay, so the ruler, he did not have any right over his army now. Instead, he had to pay rent to the company for taking care of the armed forces. And by any chance, if the ruler failed to pay the required amount to the company, then a part of their territory was taken away as a fine or as a penalty. So it was very disturbing for the local rulers now, because first of all, the rulers formed their own army, their own military, but then the sad part is they did not have right over it on their own. So that is why the company took over the army, and the ruler who actually formed the army, they had to pay a particular amount to the company in order to ensure that the armed forces are maintained properly. And if the ruler fails to pay the amount, then a part of their land, a part of the kingdom territory was taken away by the company as penalty or fine. Did you understand the subsidiary alliance? So it was a very unfair means of, extension of territory undertaken by the British. So I have given an example here from your book. Richard Wellesley, the Governor General, he forced the Nawab of Awadh to give half of his territory to the company in 1801 as he failed to pay for the subsidiary forces. Even Hyderabad was also forced to give up parts of its territory on similar grounds. So the Nawab of Awadh and the Nawab of Hyderabad, since they were unable to pay the particular amount that was asked by the company for maintaining the army, since they could not pay, that is why they were forced to give up some parts of their territory to the company. Okay, so this was all about the subsidiary alliance. Now let us study about Tipu Sultan, who was also called as the King of Mysore. So you must be wondering, why was Tipu Sultan called as a tiger? Why was he compared to a tiger? Well, there is a story behind this. So it was said that Tipu Sultan, when he became the ruler of Mysore in 1782, then he went in the forest for hunting with a French friend. French friend means a friend who was originally from France. So in the forest, he came face to face with a tiger. And at that time, Tipu Sultan's gun did not work properly. And the dagger means a sharp tool. It's like a knife, a sharp one. So when his dagger fell to the ground, he was with full force battling with the tiger without any arms and ammunitions. Neither he had his gun because it was not working, and his dagger, which was in his pocket, that also fell down. So he had to battle with the tiger without any tools, without any arms, and somehow he managed to pick the dagger and he was able to kill the tiger at one go. Okay, so because of this brave act of Tipu Sultan, he came to be known as the Tiger of Mysore. And even in the flag of Mysore, when he was the king, he ensured that the image of a tiger is, so imprinted there. So this is the legend behind why Tipu Sultan is said to be a tiger. Okay, so now let's try to understand how Tipu Sultan controlled the British for a long time and how he did not allow the British to take over his capital or his kingdom that easily. So Tipu Sultan, as I told you, was the ruler of Mysore. So Mysore is basically a state from South India. So during that time, the most powerful king of Mysore was Hyder Ali, and later on, Hyder Ali was succeeded by his son Tipu Sultan. So at that time, Mysore, that means Tipu Sultan, the ruler of Mysore, it controlled the trade at the Malabar coast. Malabar coast is the coast in South India. Okay, it's a seaport. So in the Malabar coast, the ruler Tipu Sultan in Mysore, it controlled trade there. And the British from the Malabar coast, they would come to purchase or buy pepper and cardamom. Okay, so Tipu Sultan in 1785, he stopped the export of certain products like sandalwood, pepper and cardamom through these ports in his kingdom. And even he did not allow the local merchants in his kingdom to trade with the company. So in other words, now the British could not come to Mysore to get whatever products they wanted, to get the spices they wanted. Okay, and also the king of Mysore did not allow the local merchants of Mysore to trade with the British. So because of this, there were a lot of problems among the state of Mysore and among the British East India Company. Apart from this, Tipu Sultan had a very good relation with the French. The French were the rivals of the English East India Company, if you remember. But Tipu Sultan was a friend of the French, and with the help of the French, he modernized his army. Modernized his army means he helped his army to get certain weapons which were quite modern if you compare it with the other Indian states. So because of this, there were 4 wars which were fought between Tipu Sultan and the East India Company. So the wars took place at 1767, at 1780, at 1790 and finally in 1799. So it was in 1799 when Tipu Sultan was defeated, and he was defeated while trying to defend his capital or save his capital, and the name of his capital was Seringapatam. So it was during the battle of Seringapatam in 1799 that Tipu Sultan was defeated by the company, and after this battle Mysore was once again ruled by the Wodeyars dynasty. So Wodeyars dynasty was that dynasty which ruled before Tipu Sultan and his father came into power. Okay, so in the battle of Seringapatam, as I told you, Tipu Sultan was defeated and the company placed the Wodeyars dynasty once again in Mysore, and there was subsidiary alliance imposed on the state. So subsidiary alliance means the Wodeyars dynasty could not maintain an independent army, and instead they had to pay the British in order to ensure that their army is well trained and well maintained. So the Wodeyars dynasty replaced, we can say, the dynasty of Tipu Sultan after his death at Seringapatam in 1799. So if you see these pictures, the picture at the top is from the Battle of Seringapatam, where Tipu Sultan could be found trying to fight with the British all alone in order to save it. But of course he failed and he died at last. And in the picture below you can see that the British official standing here is Lord Cornwallis, and Lord Cornwallis is receiving the sons of Tipu Sultan, both of these small sons of Tipu Sultan, as hostages. Hostages means as prisoners. Okay, in 1793, immediately after the end of the Battle of Seringapatam. So after this, the company was at war with the Marathas. So from the late 18th century, the company wanted to destroy the Maratha power as well, because the Maratha power was growing really strong. But the Marathas were weakened. The Marathas became weak in 1761 when they were defeated in the Third Battle of Panipat. So the Marathas were a great power, but after the Third Battle of Panipat, when they were defeated, their rule became weak. Okay, and because of this weakness in their rule, the entire Maratha kingdom now had different groups within it. So there were various dynasties in Marathas. Some examples I have highlighted here: Sindhia, Holkar, Gaikwads and the Bhosles. So these were all different chiefs. Okay, and all these chiefs of the various dynasties, they together were under an alliance, under a treaty. We also call it a confederacy, and it was called as the Peshwa. So the Peshwa was based in Pune. So Peshwa was like an umbrella holding all the various chiefs of the dynasties, the Maratha dynasties. Okay, so Mahaji Sindhia and Nana Fadnis, they were two very famous Maratha soldiers and statesmen during that time. So how was the Peshwa removed and how did the Marathas come to an end? The rule of the Marathas come to an end after battle with the company. So the Marathas were suppressed. They were destroyed in a series of war against the company. So the first war was called as the First Anglo-Maratha War. It took place in 1775 and it ended in 1782. And in this war, there was a special treaty signed, and the name of the treaty was the Treaty of Salbai. In the Second Anglo-Maratha War from 1803 to 05, the British took control over Orissa and also the territories which were at the north of Yamuna River, which included Agra and Delhi. And lastly, there was the Third Anglo-Maratha War from 1817 to 1819, and in this the Peshwa was removed altogether and he was sent away somewhere near Kanpur with a small amount of money, or a small pension we can say. And after the Peshwa was suppressed and he was sent away from his own native kingdom, the company now had full control over all those territories which were once under the Peshwa. Alright, and all those chiefs of the various dynasties who were under the Peshwa, even they were suppressed. And that is why all these kingdoms that were before controlled by the Peshwa and basically the Marathas, now they were all under the control of the company. So this is a picture from the Anglo-Maratha battle. Okay, so this is your homework. You have to first write what happened in the Battle of Seringapatam very briefly. Then you have to explain the subsidiary alliance system. Then you have to define the residents. And then who was Tipu Sultan? Why was Tipu Sultan known as the Tiger of Mysore? And lastly, what were the consequences or the results of all the three Anglo-Maratha wars? You have to write about it separately, as I have written in the slide, the last slide particularly. Okay, so these are your homeworks for today. You need to write these questions, and your last day of submission of this homework is 28th of May, that is tomorrow, Thursday. So thank you, students. Have a good day, and we will meet again on Friday.